The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for waking up with us. I'm Maddie Jansen alongside Alex Fisher.
This morning, we're learning more details on the tragic shooting death of an officer in the small city of Selma in Fresno County. The officer, with just 2 years on the job, was an expectant father and the son of farm workers. Selma is located just south of Fresno and about 90 miles north of Kern County. It is an hour-and-a-half drive from downtown Bakersfield. Red Rodriguez with our sister station in Fresno reports on the events leading up to the deadly encounter.
We didn't just lose a police officer, we lost a great human being. And that's the unfortunate part.
Just before noon Tuesday, a Selma police officer was waved down by a homeowner near Mitchell and Rose, reporting an unidentified man on the property.
As our officer exited his patrol vehicle and made contact with the suspect shot him several times and then fled the area.
After the shooting, multiple law enforcement agencies searched the area for the suspect, forcing nearby Eric White Elementary School to go on lockdown. An eyewitness talks about the huge law enforcement presence that arrived after the shooting.
They had all kinds of SUVs, undercover SUVs coming in from Fresno. I looked on Highland. They were coming in like crazy, and a bunch of highway patrols and our Fresno sheriffs.
A sheriff's department deputy located the suspect and he was taken into custody. Shortly later found a firearm we believe to be involved in this incident.
The officer was transported to Community Regional Medical Center. He had only been in the Selma PD for 2 years. Officers tracked down the 23-year-old suspect and took him into custody near Fig and Sequoia about a half an hour after the officer was shot. He was currently on probation as a part of California's AB 109 law, also known as prison realignment. The law is only supposed to apply to non-serious, non-sex, and non-violent offenders.
He is currently on probation for being a felon in possession of a firearm. He has priors for drug possession and armed robbery.
None of the officers involved capturing the suspect fired their weapons.
That was Red Rodriguez reporting. This morning, Tyre Nichols will be laid to rest in Memphis. His family and Reverend Al Sharpton spoke at the historic Memphis church last night, where Dr. Martin Luther King gave his last speech.
We're all Tyre now.
That's right.
And we're all going to stand up with this family.
That's right.
They will never, ever recover from the loss. Every holiday, there'll be a missing chair at their table. Every day, this mother and father and brothers and sisters will have to remember he's gone. But we will never leave them.
Sharpton said what happened to Nichols was a disgrace to the country, and he renewed his call for justice. He called on Congress to pass the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act, which failed to pass in 2021. Vice President Kamala Harris plans to attend the funeral, and according to a news release, Sharpton will deliver the eulogy.
5:05 now, and President Biden and Bakersfield Congressman and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy will have a high-stakes meeting at the White House later today. It is their first one-on-one meeting since McCarthy took the gavel. NBC's Bree Jackson is in Washington this morning with more.
Tell him about his further request.
President Biden preparing to meet with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy for the first time today. The president's coming with a clear message in mind.
Show me his budget. Show me his budget.
In a memo, White House officials reveal two critical questions President Biden will pose. Will the speaker commit to not allowing the U.S. to default on its financial obligations? And what's the House Republicans' budget plan? The GOP is demanding spending cuts to lift the debt limit, but has yet to provide details. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says he's coming to the White House ready to negotiate.
I think we could find common ground, that we could find a lot of savings in the spending of government that saves the hardworking taxpayers their money, but also puts America in a stronger economic position.
24 hardline GOP senators sent a letter to President Biden stating they'd vote no on any bill to raise the nation's debt without cuts. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell did not sign the letter but says he supports Speaker McCarthy's bargaining efforts.
It's not unprecedented to have a discussion about spending in connection with the debt ceiling.
Administration officials insist Congress must reach a deal to avoid a default.
The president is not going to negotiate or allow the full faith and credit of the United States to be held hostage.
Experts warn defaulting would come with serious consequences, such as a recession, a stock market crash, and putting Social Security payments at risk. White House officials say President Biden plans to release his proposed budget on March 9th. In Washington, I'm Bree Jackson, NBC News.
Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley is expected to formally announce her run for the White House later this month. According to a person familiar with her plans, Haley's expected to make the announcement on February 15th in Charleston, South Carolina. She would be the first Republican to jump into the 2024 presidential race this year, facing only former President Donald Trump. Trump announced his bid in November, kicking off his campaign with new stops in New Hampshire and South Carolina just this last weekend. Last night, government officials, local industry leaders, and Kern residents gathered at the Kern County Fairgrounds for the 2023 State of the County. The event, the first one in person since the COVID-19 pandemic, marked a chance to take stock of where the county stands, the biggest issues facing Kern, and what's to come. 17's Maddie Gannon has more.
After the in-person festivities were sidelined for a couple years due to the pandemic, the community was back together Tuesday night for the 2023 State of the County.
It's really meaningful to have so many business leaders, dignitaries, community leaders, government officials from the highest level in Congress to our local school board.
Hi, I'm Kevin McCarthy.
One guest did appear by video. Bakersfield Congressman and Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy introducing Tuesday night's keynote speaker.
Without further ado, please welcome the 3rd District Supervisor and this year's Chairman of the Board, Jeff Flores.
What a pleasure it is to welcome you all to tonight's 25th annual State of the County.
In his address, Kern County Board of Supervisors Chairman Jeff Flores highlighting Kern's leading status in agriculture and energy, pledging to continue fighting Governor Gavin Newsom's administration on restrictions to drilling in Kern, while also mentioning a new renewable project coming to the county.
Kern County is one of only 24 communities nationwide to be awarded a U.S. Department of Energy specialty grant. This funding will be used to develop the concept for a clean energy and carbon management business park. Kern County produces 80% of California's oil and gas under the strictest, most environmentally conscious regulations in the world.
Flores also hitting on some of the biggest issues facing the county, saying Measure K, the 1-cent sales tax increase in unincorporated Kern, passed by voters in November, will help address concerns over public safety.
Our board plans to use Measure K funding to address these concerns by filling current vacancies in staffing substations, along with putting more law enforcement officers on our streets.
About 600 people attended Tuesday's address, including one Kern resident speaking about the importance of representation.
Well, for our Hispanic community, it's very important to be here tonight because, we have a lot of business in Kern County. And I know I'm going to see a lot of different partners that are also Hispanic because we want to see what's happening in our community. We are part of that community and we want to make that change.
In Bakersfield, Maddie Gannon, 17 News.
In education news now. Plans for a proposed charter school meant to close the opportunity gap for African American students and other students of color have been put on hold until at least next year. Organizers behind the Willie J. Frink College Prep tell 17 News they are still working on securing a building to get the school up and running. Organizers say they will file a new petition with the Panama Buena Vista Union School District to open the school in March. The board will then set the date to vote for the school's approval.
Tune in today as Bakersfield native Kelly Gerhold competes on Game Show Network's Masterminds.
And of course, let's welcome our returning champion. She's a teacher with a master's in history that is also a whistling virtuoso. Please welcome Kelly back to the show.
This will be the Bakersfield College history professor's second consecutive episode where she has a chance to not only win the $10,000 grand prize, but also to join the ranks as a mastermind, something that's never happened in the 3-season history of the show. If she wins, she'll be invited back to play as an expert on tomorrow's episode. Gerhold's shot at becoming a mastermind will air Wednesday at 3 p.m. on Game Show Network.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.